What is up, YouTube? We are back with another video, and a buddy of mine actually reached out as of recent and asked, is it possible to gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time? And so I figured I'd make a video on this because I get this question literally all the time. Now, the simple answer is wait until the end of the video if you want to find out. So we need to take multiple factors into consideration. Because when it comes to fitness, there's no one size fits all. There's not one answer that's going to work. It might work for you, but it might not work for somebody else. And also it might work for you under a specific, condition, but under a different condition with different variables, it might not work. So it really depends on a lot of things. But let's talk first about, why I truly believe that you can do both at the same time. So the more body fat you have, the less efficient your body is going to be with, pulling nutrients into the bloodstream. Because the more adipose tissue, which is body fat, the more of that you have, the less your body is going to be able to pull nutrients in because you have something called insulin. And so as fat increases, so does insulin. And insulin is basically this receptor, right? And again, by the way, guys, with these videos, I try to break everything down. I'm not the type of person that's going to give you all the science mumbo jumbo. Although I research that on my own and I look at these things on my own, I know that a lot of you guys, like myself in the past, not to say that you guys are bro science or bro lifters. I'm sure all of you guys have intelligence and you know a little bit at least about fitness nutrition, but I'm sure that you also have questions, and that's probably why you're here on this channel. So I'm not going to be that type of person that's going to say, the chemical reaction or the chemical bond of creatine phosphorus. Like, I'm not going to give you that stuff, bro, because you could go into a science textbook and find this information, but how does that actually apply to you getting jacked in the gym, right? And there's a podcast I recommend. It's called Modern Meatheads, and it's funny because the whole purpose of the podcast is, breaking these things down from advanced terminology to a beginner or a lifter in the gym. But when I listened to that video, I realized that a lot of the terminology used, a lot of the things they're speaking of are very advanced. And I don't think that the average person that has little or no background experience in knowledge or research into these things can even understand it. Even myself, at times, I'm like, I need to take a minute to actually absorb what they're saying. Because again, they're using terminology that if you did not go to medical school, if you did not, go to school for exercise science, if you don't understand what force, what torque is, physics, anatomy, all these things combined, and you know how to actually take it from a conceptual level to an applicable level in the gym, then you're going to have no idea what people are saying, right? And so the way I like to do things here is give you guys it, I like to filter it through the easy to understand, easy to conceptualize view, and something that you can walk in the gym tomorrow and apply these things, right? So, or walk into the kitchen, this evening and apply these things, right? So I'm not going to give you all the mumbo jumbo, but what I'm going to give you is the real truth, the real answers, and not just things that the textbook says, not just things that it says on the internet, right? Because a lot of people have this information, but and I mean this respectfully, but they're not jacked. And again, I mean this super respectfully. I'm not saying I'm better than this person or vice versa, but a lot of people, it's tough to find that middle ground. It's very difficult to find somebody that's jacked and they're natural and they understand what all these things mean. And I'm not saying that's what I am, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of people on one side of the spectrum or the other where either they're on gear, which is either taking performance enhancing drugs, and maybe if you're natural like myself, you cannot relate to that as much. And I always found growing up that there was these bodybuilders I followed that were on steroids, and they didn't understand, or at least most of them didn't understand what anatomy was. They didn't even know the joints of the body. They didn't even know the muscle groups and the real names for these things and the actual science behind it. But because they were training consistently and training hard, and some of them, not all of them, but some of them were taking performance enhancing drugs, they're going to see results and they're going to talk about, things that they might know what they're talking about, but they also might not. And it might not apply to you. And unless you're also training hard and training that specific way and having that knowledge of not the textbook information, but how to train hard, how to train properly, and how to, get the most from your training with performance enhancing drugs or supplements like Not everybody's going to want to do that. And personally, I've always been lifetime natural, never wanted to step foot over there because it's like, it's literally going to deteriorate your health. And of course, there's research that shows, you know, there are safe ways to do it. And I've heard these things, of course, too. But myself personally, I just want to break it down for you guys because if you're not on that side, then a lot of the information you're going to find on the other side is people that, you know, have their research. They went to school for exercise science. They maybe are a physical therapist, maybe they're a chiropractor, you know, maybe they're a dietitian, maybe they're a nurse, a doctor, I don't know. And they know all these things. They know, and it's funny because I've trained so many in-person clients and I've trained people, and this is nothing against it, but I've trained clients in the past that can name every single intercostal muscle. They can name every single rib muscle. They can name every single joint, but they don't have a bunch of muscle mass. And so they know that minute things, but they aren't applying it. And so what I like to do, again, on this channel, is not just talk about my faith, my fitness, you know, real life stuff, nutrition, training, etc., but also, you know, of course, I work as a fitness coach, so this is my passion. This is what I'm going to break down for you, give the answers to. And the way I like to do it is giving you the answers that you need. Not too much, not too little, but just what you need so that you can understand it and take that information and, you know, use it towards your own goals. So let's break it down. That being said, after I get a little spiel, right? Can you gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time? Well, let's go in. So again, the more body fat you have on your body, the less receptive you will be to building new muscle mass. And because the reason for this is when you have less body fat, you're going to be very, very, very insulin sensitive. Now, what that means again is, you know, you have very little body fat, and because you have very little body fat, your body is going to be very likely to actually pull the nutrients from the food that you're eating on a day-to-day basis. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard the term insulin sensitivity, and what does that mean? Again, on a level where you guys can understand it and actually apply it, I'm breaking it down. So if you're somebody that has a PhD and you say that I missaid something improperly, know that I'm breaking it down for you guys in a simple but, you know, understandable way so that you can actually apply these things. And I've done my research, you know, I've trained hundreds of clients. I've worked with plenty of clients with nutrition, exercise, etc. And I've actually been training lifting weights for over 12 years now. So not to say I know everything. Science also is always changing, so there's no such thing as one right answer versus one wrong answer. But these are things that have worked for myself. These are things that I've applied to clients and allowed them and seen that they made tangible results from. Right, and so the more body fat you have, you're going to have higher insulin sensitivity. Now, if you've ever heard the term insulin sensitivity, you've probably heard it in the context or in the same sentence as something, you know, like diabetes or, you know, some sort of health issue, right, or being obese, for example, or overweight. Now, what that means is the more insulin resistant you are, right, you have more insulin resistance as you have more fat, and you have less insulin resistance, meaning you're more sensitive to insulin when you're leaner, right? So when you have less body fat, this just means that you're going to derive nutrients from the food you're eating much easier. Now, the reason for this, again, I'm breaking it down for you in a simple term, is when you have too much body fat, right, your body, you know, it's unable to efficiently regulate how to pull nutrients from your body because it has so much fat in the way, right? And because it has so much fat in the way, it's almost like blocking the way for the nutrients to get into your bloodstream and then therefore get into your muscles and into your body, right? And so you have too much body fat, you know, it's going to be very, very challenging for you to take all the nutrients you need. And, you know, if you want to build muscle, you need adequate protein. And if you have too much body fat and you're insulin resistant, right, you have insulin resistance, or you're resistant, you're not taking that insulin in, right, and deriving the nutrients from it, then it's going to be very, very difficult for, you know, you to actually take the protein, break it down into amino acids, and use it to build new muscle mass. One more thing I'll chime in here quickly and say is, if the reason protein is so important is if we can get adequate protein, we're going to also get adequate amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks that, you know, they chain on top of one another and, you know, they build on one another, right? And having enough of them, having all of them, the necessary ones, are going to lead to optimal muscle growth as much as possible, right? Now, if you don't have all this protein, which again breaks down the amino acids, if you don't have enough of it, it's going to be very, very difficult for, your body to pull the nutrients from it because it has all this body fat in the way. So where I'm getting at all this is if your body fat stores are too high, you're not going to be very likely to take all the nutrients you need. And if we need a proper amount of nutrients and the right amount of nutrients to build muscle, and also knowing that the more muscle we have, the more calories we burn at rest, the higher likelihood we have at shredding body fat when we have more muscle mass. This is something I'm huge on. And most people don't talk about that. If you have more muscle mass, naturally as a byproduct, your body fat decreases and you become more receptive and more able to derive the nutrients from the food you're giving your body. So the more fat you have, and again, if I'm repeating myself, it's not to say that you're dumb or whatever, it's y'all are also intelligent like myself. But what I'm saying with this is, if you have too much body fat, I'm just repeating myself to really get my point across. If you have too much body fat, you're not going to be able to pull the nutrients you need to build muscle. And because of that, because you're not building muscle, you're going to struggle losing fat, right? Now, at the same time, on the contrary, if you have too low of a body fat and you're too sensitive to insulin, you're going to be able to, build muscle, but maybe you're too lean, and because of that, maybe your body, is breaking down muscle mass as energy, right? Hypothetically speaking, that could happen, and it does happen. This is why if you're too lean for too long, you start to lose muscle, because your body needs to be, in a caloric surplus. It needs to have more calories than it's burning to maintain hold on to this muscle, right? So it's this constant fluctuation up and down of, do we have enough, do we have too little? And it's not a day over day thing, it's more of a week over week thing, and really it's a year or a decade over decade thing, right? And depending on how long you've been exercising, training for in the gym, if you have, too low of body fat, you're going to be able to be really, really receptive to actually pulling the nutrients, deriving them from your food, and building muscle with it. But if, because of that, because you have such little body fat, it's going to be tough because it's hard to get yourself into a huge caloric surplus and also stay lean, right? Because you want to have this gradual steady stream, right, where you're staying lean but building muscle, right? And so I'm going to get to this later in the video, but if you're too lean, you're going to be very, very receptive to actually building muscle. But if your body at the exact same time is breaking muscle mass down because it needs more energy to maintain current weight and current muscle, then you're kind of, just balancing each other out and losing muscle, right? And that's never fun. I'm sure that all of you guys watching this video, if you could choose, you would probably, like myself, want to have as much muscle mass as humanly possible while also being as shredded as humanly possible. And maybe that's not your goal, but I know a lot of people, I speak with a lot of people that ask me questions, they say, hey, these are my goals. I want to be jacked in my mind, and I want to also be ripped. And if you ask somebody like a power lifter, if they're at 30% body fat and they have a bunch of muscle, if you ask them like, hey, would you rather be leaner? And they say no, well, one, they're probably lying, but if they're not lying, it's probably because they know that they need, enough energy to be able to lift these heavy, heavy weights. So if they have a lot of body fat, they are going to be more likely to lift these heavier weights, lift these powerlifting, or win these powerlifting competitions, I should say, and perform better lifts. But for those of you watching my channel, I'm not a powerlifter. I've never performed in powerlifting, and I've never, gone down that style of training for very long. It's really been, how much muscle I can gain and how little body fat I can gain over the long haul. That's really my goal, because I think that aesthetics is something that a lot of people are after, but also genuine health, right? And the lower body fat you have, the more muscle you have, typically you're in a good spot. Again, there's always these factors, and too low body fat's not good, too high is not good, but that's just my opinion. That's what I personally like to go for, right? So again, if your fat is too high, then you're going to be less receptive to building muscle. But also, if your fat's too low, I say fat, not fat intake, but body fat. If your body fat levels are too low, then you might not be able to, although you're super receptive to it, you might not be able to, put muscle on as quickly and as rapidly. Now, what I found has always worked for me, and what I've applied to the clients I've worked with, is, finding somewhere in the middle. I think life is really, truly all about balance, and this is one of those things where it is about balance. It's, okay, where is that fine line? Where is that spot, where you feel you want to be and you want to cruise at? I've always found, personally, that staying in that leaner range, so I'm talking anywhere from 8 to maybe 12% body fat, as a male, if you're in that range, you're going to have a very good chance at building muscle rapidly, especially if you're eating the right sorts of foods, you're training consistently, and you have all the other variables down, you're recovering, etc. Now, if your body fat percentage is over that, like 12 to 15% range, it's going to be a little bit more challenging, but it's still doable. But the thing is, as you gain more and more muscle, or what you think is muscle, it's probably weight, and as your muscle increases, you're probably also going to notice that body fat goes up a little bit, again, because you need to be in that surplus. And most people, when they look at being in a surplus, they're going in such a surplus that because of that, they're also putting fat on it. So it's like, okay, muscle's going up, but fat's also going up. And by the people on the other side that are ripped out of their mind, but don't have a ton of muscle, their body fat's so low, because it's so low, they're struggling to put muscle on. So you want to ideally, again, if you're watching this channel, probably, I'm assuming at least, you ideally want to be somewhere in the middle. So I've always found if we're in the 8 to 12% body fat range, we're going to have a very, very good chance at building muscle. So if you're, say, currently at like 20% body fat, should you, A, continue working on getting your muscle up, or focus on getting leaner? I say you should focus on getting leaner first, because once you get there, then you're going to have a nice baseline. Now you're at that baseline level, your body is going to be super receptive, right? You're going to notice ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, rapidly increasing, which means that your stomach will be growling all the time. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but you get used to it. And as you do that, and you get into that habit, you notice, okay, I'm dropping weight a little bit, and it's really body fat for the most part. And then once you get there, yeah, you maybe lose a little bit of muscle in the meantime, but once you get to that baseline, now you can slowly, brick by brick, 1% each day, sort of, vibe, work your way up until you get jacked out of your mind, and you gain lean muscle while staying lean in the process and not putting on a ton of fat. But it takes the right strategy. It takes, making sure that you're getting proper nutrients, and, that you're actually strength training and recovering, etc. Now, at the same time, if you're super lean and you don't have a ton of muscle mass, and you're okay, like, say you're at like 4% body fat, right? Which some people are there. Say you're at 4 or 5% body fat, you're super ripped. You might, instead of being in a 50 calorie surplus, you might be better off getting to the 8 to 12% range. This way you store a little bit more fat, maybe, yeah, but at the same time, because you're holding more weights, you're going to end up typically wanting to eat more food, feeling hungrier, etc. Right? And so ideally, if we're in the 8 to 12% range, we're going to be in a sweet spot when it comes to gaining muscle. And now, when it comes to the next step in the process, what I'll say is, just because you're getting in the nutrients you need and your body's, absorbing it all, doesn't mean that you can just eat endless amounts of food, right? Like, if you're in that 8 to 12% range and you start eating insane amounts of food, like I'm talking 500, 1,000 calories more than your body's used to, what's going to happen is, insulin sensitivity, is going to decrease. Insulin resistance is going to increase, meaning that your body's going to be less and less efficient at actually pulling the nutrients into your body. And so if you're, jumping up gradual, like instead of making these gradual increases, if you're rapidly jumping calories, that's going to put a lot of stress on your body. And how our body is made to adapt, right, is, we have these hormones in our body, right, where, it adapts to the stressors and the things we give to it, right? But if you give your body a ton of food all at once, your body is just wired to, be like, okay, we just got 800 calories worth of food. We're not used to taking all this in at once, so we're not going to probably be able to efficiently absorb it, break it down, etc. It's probably going to get, do harm to our digestive tract and these sorts of things. Not just that, but also our body is wired to store energy, right? And this is why fitness and getting in shape is not as easy as it looks. And it's not, as much as I like to say, getting yourself into the equation of literally fats plus protein plus carbs equals calories, which is so true. You need to make sure you have the right variables down first before you can do that. And so you might be hitting your macros, but macros might be wrong, which is how it is a lot of times. People say I'm eating XYZ food and they're not really eating that consistently, and it's just that simple. People say I'm eating 200, 250 grams of protein a day. Like, okay, let's actually track it over 90 straight days and see. I can guarantee you're 40% off at a bare minimum. Most people are way off. And even if you're spot on, well, the next day you're way off, right? So you need to have that data to actually know. But not everybody wants to, be tying themselves down to tracking these things. So, okay, if you can get yourself to that visually 8 to 12% range, and maybe you take a in-body scan, a DEXA scan, etc., and you see that's where your body fat's at. If you get to that point, then you can have a better eyeball in a sense. But ideally, tracking these things, having the data to prove it, having the numbers is going to be your best friend. And you don't have to do it forever, but you can get yourself to that baseline and then work your way back up, right? And so, ouch, my leg is sore. Oh my goodness. I hit legs, and so my leg is, literally this leg is like asleep right now. What the heck? Oh. Brief interruption. Okay, and so yeah, basically where do you want to go from here, right? You want to make sure that, you know, you're getting enough nutrients, you're getting enough protein, right? And so when it comes to giving your body protein, more is not always better, right? Like you going for a gram of protein per pound of body weight could work, depending on where you're at in your goals and, you know, your body's ability to regulate insulin and how it absorbs nutrients, but it's not always better, right? And so you need to figure out how much you should be giving your body, and so working your way up slowly and gradually. Same thing with the body fat, you know, with your protein is key. So okay, start consistently hitting a number that you feel good with, and you're gonna notice again your hunger hormone ghrelin, which allows your stomach to growl and demand food. That's gonna start increasing, which is a good, you know, it's a good way to do this in that kind of eyeball situation, because again, not all of us want to track food, and you can get to a point. Realistically, you can get to a point, and this is where I take my clients through. They get to a point where they don't have to be consistently tracking food anymore, unless they want to be perfect and really down to the T, like shredded, or they're competing for a show. I don't train, at least at the moment. I don't coach clients stepping on stage. You know, not that I wouldn't be opposed to it. Not that I'd be opposed to it, but you know, ideally, I would refer one of these clients off to a bodybuilding coach that knows and has a lot more experience on what these things are, because I've never stepped on a stage myself. And there are a lot of things I know, but I would rather, you know, help the, you know, somebody that wants this physique for their lifestyle. And that's honestly how I've always looked at it. And nothing against bodybuilding, but I think, you know, so many people, they do it just for the show. And then 6 months later, their insulin sensitivity, crashes, right? And they're in horrible shape 6 months later, and they look like they don't even work out. So I've always had the approach of a lifestyle. Like I would rather, instead of being, you know, top 1%, I'd rather be like 5-10% all the time, 24/7, without having to be 1% for that one photo and then back to the 15-20%. And when I say 15-20%, I'm saying rankings in terms of like physiques. And even that, it's like, don't compare yourself to anybody. Don't compare your physique to anybody else. But I'm talking like your overall level of how good you feel about yourself and how much more progress you feel like you can make relative to where you're at, right? And so when it comes to protein, you know, again, start with that baseline of, okay, if you're a dude that's 150 pounds, I don't know what your food looks like, but let's consistently aim for like 75 grams or 80 grams, or just find a number that you can stick with and do it every single day for like 10, 15, 20 days. And you're going to notice your hunger hormone goes through the roof. You're going to feel super hungry all the time, which is good. It shows that, okay, your body's actually breaking body fat down as energy, and it's going to use that because, you know, it's consistently getting protein down, and it has a little bit more dependency, a little bit more reliancy in the terms where it knows what's coming in. And again, when your body knows what's coming in all the time, it gets into this nice routine. It's under less stress. It operates efficiently. And when we're fluctuating all the time and not tracking these things, it's very tough. You're throwing a ton of stress at the body, and it doesn't really know how to react. So that's why it's going to perform less efficient. So now, if you can get, say you're 150 pounds, right? You get that 75, 80 grams of protein every single day. Now you notice, okay, I'm feeling hungry all the time. You know, I'm still getting a lot of other carbs and fats, and my calories are pretty consistent. Okay, well, from that point now let's start to gradually increase it, because now your insulin, you know, resistance is decreased, your insulin sensitivity is optimized. So, okay, you're a lot more likely to actually pull these nutrients in. So find that baseline number. I have a macro calculator that I use for me and my clients. If you want that, so that you have a better gauge, then comment on this post the word macro, and I'll send it to you. And that way you can plug in your metrics and know a better idea of where you should be. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to start eyeballing these things, which again might be a little bit slower, then the best way to do it is find that number that you feel good with, that you feel pretty consistent with, that you feel doable, and do it every single day for, again, 2, maybe 3 weeks. And then at that point, you can start to increase it. So, okay, now you're at 75, 80 grams, and you're moving it up to 100, 150, and then you eventually get there, right? But it's 5 to 10 grams of protein, maybe every week, 2 weeks, and then you feel like you're in a good spot, right? Now, the next thing from that point would be you know, once you have your protein consistently high, is just making sure your fat and carbs are not both elevated, right? Like we need one or the other higher than the other. So some people are going to do better on a higher fat diet and lower carbs. That's what I prefer to do for the most part. But there are times I like to have higher carbs in my diet. So sometimes, you know, higher carbs and lower fats. And the reason is your body's going to use one of the two, either fats or carbs, as its preferred fuel source. You know, if you have a lot of body fat on your body, you know, your body sometimes can tap into that as energy. But if your insulin is all over the place and it's not regulated, then it's going to have a difficult time doing that. And that's why we see people with diabetes, you know, people with having to, you know, eat sugar or get rapid sugar into their bloodstream, is because they literally can't produce it very well. And regardless of how well they try to eat on a diet, they're going to have cravings. But even if they willed their way through and they ate the way they should, it's going to take some time, and it might not ever be able to be resolved unless they address the root cause, right? So like, okay, now you have your protein down pat and you've been there consistently, you know, and you get your carbs and your fats in a good spot. And again, this is where I say it: protein plus carbs plus fats equals your calories. So now you have all three variables down. Okay, now you know exactly, like, this is going to work for you, right? But first you have to get your body to that point where your body fat stores are low enough where you actually can be receptive enough to, you know, derive these nutrients, pull them into your bloodstream, and actually use them. Because if you're just eating food, if you're just eating dairy products, and you don't tolerate dairy well, then like your body is literally just gonna take that, you know, put it through the digestive tract, and it's gonna, sorry if it's TMI, but come out the other end, and that's just as simple as it is. Same thing with gluten. If you have a gluten intolerance and you're eating gluten, pasta, these sorts of things all the time, bread, like things that your body doesn't respond with, your body is literally resisting it. It's like, imagine you had two magnets and they were like the same force, right? Instead of being polarizing and opposites that, you know, connect, it's, you know, a plus sign and a plus sign, right? They're going to literally resist, and it's not going to work, and it's just going to go through, you know, one end and out the other, right? And so you need to understand that there's so many variables that come into play. But the best way to do it is, okay, find that baseline and then work your way up. So you've worked your way up, right? You're in a pretty good spot. And now where you're at now is you can consistently make these adjustments and you can progress your nutrition. So now you can slowly but gradually give your body more food. And why are we giving our body more food? It's because as you're getting leaner, you know, you're becoming less and less dependent on, you know, as you're getting leaner, you're becoming, I should say, more and more dependent on the nutrients from the food and less dependent on your body fat stores, because you have less fat available, right? Less resource, less energy stored available. So when you get to that point, it becomes a little bit more manageable, and now you can actually see tangible results. And so when you get there, the reason we need more food is, assuming you're also progressing in the gym with heavier weights, you know, week over week, maybe every 2 weeks, right? But like your muscles are getting stronger by doing more. Now, therefore, they are, you know, demanding more food. And if they're not being fed that nutrients and actually absorbing, breaking it all down, then what's going to happen is your body's going to tap into, you know, muscle mass as energy, right? And it might start to lose some of the muscle mass in the process, or it might become, you know, if you go into too much of a surplus, it might become a little bit more dependent on food and start to, you know, not be as efficient with, you know, staying lean, and as a byproduct, fat stores go up, and we don't want that, right? But like when you get to that point where, you know, your protein is at a pretty good spot and it's consistent and gradual, and you're getting stronger over week, like your body needs more food, it's adapting to getting stronger, and it's using more energy week over week, so you need to therefore consistently, gradually monitor these things. And this is why so many people think, you know, I think this is why so many people don't see progress when they do a one-size-fits-all program where they say, I'm just going to figure this out one time. You have to understand these variables are always changing. And it's funny because I always like to tell this story. When I was about, when I was a teenager and I first started getting and working out, I literally remember me and a buddy, we started working out. And I don't know if he felt this way too, but I remember always saying it to him, like, all we got to do is just get jacked chests, like huge chests and six-pack abs and arms or whatever. And like once we get jacked, then, and this is like before we got into the working out, and this is before, you know, I found passion and literally fell in love with it. But I literally would say to him all the time, you know, once we get jacked, we can like just maintain that physique forever, and we don't have to do anything. We can stop working out, we can stop going to the gym, we can eat whatever. Let's just push through for this 1 year. Let's really grind for this 1 year. And it literally cracks me up. This is the way that a young kid thought about these things before understanding how science works. And I remember thinking like, okay, once I get jacked, think of from SpongeBob, that jacked lifeguard, dude. That's literally, bro, how my vision was. Like, okay, I'm gonna get to this physique, and then, phew, I'm glad that's over. Now I don't have to worry about working out anymore. Now, caveat, which is a benefit, is I literally love this so much. Like, I could not live without fitness. So, fortunately, you know, after starting, I realized, like, okay, I don't want to stop. And even if I wanted to, which I never would, you know, your body doesn't work that way, and you lose the gains like that, right? So, you know, given that, knowing that you need to consistently progress and track these things, you need to make sure that you're giving your body more and more. So, okay, now you're gradually increasing protein, and, you know, every round per se, every round could be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, again, depending on trial and error, what has worked best in the past. You know, now you're giving your body 5 more grams of protein per week, right? And then trying that for 3-4 weeks, seeing how you feel, and then 10 grams. Eventually, you can, again, get to that baseline or that new threshold. But even then, your body's going to adapt, and you're always needing to change these variables, and there are just so many factors, you know, playing a role, right? But what you need to do is make sure that you're always monitoring things, and you will be able to gain muscle and shred body fat at the same time once you hit that baseline. Once you hit your baseline and you have very little body fat, then you can start working on gaining muscle. And then you get to that point where you have a ton of muscle mass, and you're shredding body fat, and you're staying lean, and it's actually becoming easier and easier because the more muscle mass you have, your muscle is going to literally shred fat on autopilot for you. This is the way I like to term it. When you have all this muscle mass, and the majority of your body is muscle, it's going to be very, very easy to stay lean and to keep fat low. And you can get away, in a sense, not that you ever should or want to, but you can get away with eating more crappier foods and not taking your nutrition as serious. Now, usually in this process, you know, you actually realize that, okay, I feel way better. You know, I don't want to eat these junk foods anymore. But, you know, because you have so much muscle and your body's burning all these calories at rest, and because you've consistently trained it this way, your metabolism is pretty much optimized, and it's in a very good spot where you're literally burning through calories like nothing, bro. Now, you can get away with eating junk food once in a while, but again, you do that for too long, okay, now things start to drop off in the opposite direction, you become less susceptible and, you know, able to build new muscle and absorb nutrients. Right, so it's always this never-ending cycle where it's up and down, up and down. It's like, okay, how can we find, this is the way I like to look at it, how can we find, you know, that general, you know, spot where it's like, okay, I'm not really gaining more fat and I'm not really gaining a ton more muscle, but I'm kind of hovering around this area where I feel pretty content at. When you get to that point, then you can, you know, move into what I like to term intuitive implementation, where you can live your lifestyle and you can not worry too much about what you're eating and how much of it, because you have a very good gauge on how to do so. And your body's taking care of it. But again, you have to keep, you know, monitoring these things, because otherwise you lose progress like that. And so, yeah, I think I just spit some game right there, or spat, if that's the proper word. But that's really it. And then you just continue monitoring these things for A, the rest of your life, like me, and what I intend to do, or B, until you decide to give up lifting weights. But remember, as soon as you give up lifting weights, you're in a tough spot, brother. You lose all that progress. What I find, though, is that middle process from where you start and where you finish, which, again, there are such things as finishing, you should be exercising for the rest of your life. And what I'm going to say now is going to validate that. I think that middle process is where people fall in love with the process. They fall in love with the journey. They genuinely enjoy it, and not just because they're bettering themselves and they're, you know, getting into better shape, but because it's this constant, okay, I need to, our brain is designed to look for the next best thing and to get better and improve in some sense. And so it's, okay, this constant process of, we're working towards the next goal. As soon as we get to this goal and we're stagnating, we're going to start to, you know, look for the negative side of things and you know, just not feel fulfilled. But if you're constantly working towards new and new goals, then you get to a good point. So that middle process is where most people I've worked with, and the people that I think, you know, still work out to this day, that started way back in the day when I did, they understand that, okay, like, I actually like the journey way better than I like the destination and the results. And the destination and the results come as a byproduct, and it's just like a bonus in a sense. But that middle process is, you know, where people find themselves. They find their, you know, favorite things to do in the gym, and they like the journey. And they realize they're becoming better, and it's becoming easier. And, you know, just like any skill, the more you do something, the more proficient you become at it. And as you become more proficient, your body is going to operate better, and you can sustain this a little bit easier. Although nothing's easy in life, everything is difficult, everything is a sequence of events in a specific way to make sure you're doing it properly. But usually in that process, then you can get to a point where, okay, like maybe you are content, and maybe you go a couple of years where you feel like you're in a pretty good spot and you do want to just chill and relax. But I'm telling you, as soon as you get to that point and you stop, pushing yourself to the next level, you're going to start to become, you're going to feel complacent, you're going to be complacent, you're going to feel unfulfilled. Because what's the point of just doing the same thing over day? Like, this is the way I look at a job, at least. Like, I run my own fitness business, and there's always things that I can be adjusting. There's always things I can be changing. There's always things that I need to improve in. Even if I got to a point where everything was perfect and everything was the way I wanted, I would still, always want to try to add something new in and make it more interesting, because otherwise, bro, stuff gets boring and it becomes less fun. And I think anybody watching this that has their own business knows what I'm saying. And anybody, that has a job in a sense, if you're repetitively doing the same thing over and over and over and over on every single day basis, like, you're going to get bored with it, and you're going to want a raise, not just for the monetary increase in pay and everything, but like, you're going to get bored with it. Your brain's going to look for these new activities. And that's just how we're wired. So I don't think you should ever get to a point where you feel stagnant and you feel comfortable with where you're at. But if you do, not to say you shouldn't be, pretty content with the progress you made, but you should still always be reaching for more, right? And so knowing that there's this up and down roller coaster where you always have to be working, and especially fitness, you always have to be maintaining. So you might have made all this progress great, like with a job, for example. Maybe you worked 25, 30 years, I don't know, however many years, depending on how old you are, to attain this spot, to get this job, right? And maybe, like, no matter what you do, assuming it's nothing outlandish, maybe you never get fired, you never lose your job, and you just have that forever. There are going to be people out there, most people, I think, that still want to make some sort of improvement. They want to change things. Like, our brain likes change, right? Like, change is a good thing, like that saying we all hear, right? But especially with fitness, aside from work, aside from these career things and whatnot, which I think, again, either way, we're still always looking for more. When it comes to fitness, it's difficult because we have to maintain these things, and our body becomes less efficient with time and with age, and things typically tend to become more difficult to maintain. So you have to, do more to maintain it. And if you're already doing more to maintain it, wouldn't you want to, given the fact that your brain's always looking for more, wouldn't you want to do more so you can continue getting better and improving? Not just for the fear of not going back to where you were, not stagnating, but also for the purpose, the joy, the benefit of improving, right? So that's my little spiel. That's really where I'm at, and that's really what I wanted to talk about, is how you can get lean, stay lean, and do so sustainably. And yes, to answer the question, after 37 minutes and 50 seconds, yes, you can shred body fat, stay lean, and gain muscle at the same time. You can lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time. But that's the process. You need to get yourself, again, here are 3 tips that you can remember in case you don't remember all of what I said. And if you guys took notes, then you're good. But I didn't mean to rhyme there like Dr. Seuss, but if you did not remember anything I said and you are too lazy to double tap with your left or right hand, back to the previous part of the video, here are 3 tips that you can use and you can take away from this video to make sure, and again, just to remind you how you can do these things. So step 1 is get your body fat to that 8 to 12% body fat range. So if you're already there, great. You're a step ahead of the game, no pun intended. If you're not there, then okay, focus on that first. Get your body fat to 8 to 12% body fat. Now, I'm not going to go down with all the breakdown how to do that, because I have other videos talking about that. And if you want me to, do more videos on that, drop a comment, let me know, and I'll do so. But step 1, again, 8 to 12% body fat, you're in an ideal spot. Step 2, consistently hit your protein intake. Again, start with that, 70 to 80. And this is all dependent on weight. So find a number that you feel comfortable with, that you can sustain and do, and then add a brick to it, add a layer to it, week over week, or maybe 2-3 weeks at a time. And again, these are always changing, right? But okay, now you have your body fat in that range. From that point, now you're hitting your protein consistently, and then you're working on, okay, when you get to that new threshold, now you're consistently aiming for more. So, okay, 5 to 10 grams of protein, maybe every week, maybe every 2-3 weeks, depending on where you want to go. And then you get to that new threshold, and no, you're not at the top of the mountain yet. You still have to continue, climbing up, and also knowing that your body becomes, less efficient with time. So you have to train it to become better and to work for more. So you've done that. You looked at your protein. You've gotten your protein to a good point, which it's always this evolutionary or it's revolutionary or whatever the word is. It's always continuing to change. So you have to monitor these things nonstop. Which is why, like, I work with these clients. These clients the clients I work with could find this information on the internet, and they already know what to do, right? At least most of them, aside from the ones that just started working with me, most of my clients already know what they should be doing. But the thing is, they're just not doing it all the time, and that's not a jab at them, but it's literally like, yo, you have to hold yourself accountable. And we have all these other things going on in life. We have careers, we have relationships, we have maybe our faith, we have all things going on. And so it's easier if you have two people focusing on, like, if you have somebody that's done these things for years and years and years and years on end and has, you know, helped so many others and done it himself, why wouldn't you just want him to take care of it? It's like having a financial advisor. Like, yeah, you probably know how to save money, how to limit taxes, all these things, but are you really going to want to look through all the textbooks, all the videos, find all the things and do it yourself and spend all that countless time? Or do you just want to expedite the process and have somebody that's really, really good at it and that does it for a living help you out? Hence why, like, having a coach is so beneficial, right? And not just that, but they see things that you don't see, and they also give it to you from a biased perspective, from a non-emotional perspective. You might be feeling like, you know, well, I'm already muscular enough, right? And it's like, well, I'm already eating the right foods. But it's like, okay, let's look from a non-biased perspective. Let's look from, you know, an objective standpoint, right? Like, okay, maybe you're doing some things right, but here is how we progress. Because again, it's fitness, like I mentioned before, with nutrition, etc. We have to always be progressing. So if you have a coach, it's going to make it 10 to probably 15 times easier. Now, you've got your body fat from 8 to 12%, and you're in that range, boom, and then you get to that protein, you nail that off the box, boom. After doing that, you're going to optimize fats and carbs. So, okay, one is higher, one is lower, or vice versa. So it's, okay, maybe you're on keto or low carb. I'm not saying this is the way to go. You could make it work this way. It could be sustainable for you, but I don't personally think it's the easiest thing to stick with over the long term. And I've tried keto myself. I'm not a huge fan because, again, you're on one side, super extreme versus the other. You can be somewhere in the middle. And that's the big thing I like to live my life by, especially when it comes to fitness and nutrition. But, okay, now you've gotten all these things down. So, like, is your carb going to be higher or is your fat going to be higher? Well, it depends. Are you gluten intolerant? Do you have allergies with wheat? Do you not like starchy foods? Do you notice that sugar makes you have acne, inflammation? Like, okay, then maybe consider bringing your fats up and your carbs down so that you still can have all the energy you need, but you're not eating foods that are inflammatory. And maybe you do want to eat carbs, but okay, you're running into these issues, then okay, just choose wisely the foods that you respond best with. Best way to do that is do your research, try an elimination diet, or again, work with the coach. And now maybe you're on the opposite side of the spectrum. Maybe you love carbs. I have clients that love going out for dinner with their friends and they love Italian food, they love eating pasta and bread, and I can't blame them. I love it too at times, although I like to stay on the lower carb side. You know, I once in a while want to enjoy these foods too, right? And so, you know, I do have those clients that prefer their carbs, and so, okay, as a byproduct because of that, we want to make sure that our fats are not too high. So, okay, fats, let's keep these low. Make sure that our fats are not all over the place, because if you have too high fats and too high carbs, it's going to be tough if your body has way more than necessary calories from these two macronutrients. And once you get there, you don't have to worry about the final step, bro. If you have your protein and your carbs down, and you know how many calories your body needs, then you don't have to worry about where the fats are. They just fall in line. It's just an equation at the end of the day. And vice versa. If you have your protein and your fats down, you don't have to worry about where your carbs are, as long as your calories stay the same. Right? Because they end up just being, it's like A plus B plus C equals X, right? Like X being total calories, A being protein, B being carbs, C being fats, right? And there's just an example there with the letters and whatnot, but if you have, you know, this formula and you've subtracted the 2 out of the 3, there's only one answer left over, bro. It's process of elimination, right? So, you know, once you get to that point, you don't really have to worry anymore. Now, just like with the protein, just like with, you know, the progressive tracking, making sure that you're constantly monitoring these things. Sometimes you're going to have to bring your carbs up, bring your fats down. Sometimes you're going to have to, you know, flip-flop them and try higher fats, lower carbs. You're going to have to find what works for you. And again, an elimination diet is the easiest thing. And, you know, if you don't want to work with a coach, then you're going to spend probably a lot of time, a lot of effort, energy figuring these things out. But it is doable. It's definitely doable. And, you know, that really is how you achieve these things. And then assuming that you have all the other variables, right, you're also progressively training, getting stronger in the gym, you're optimizing your rest time, keeping that low, making sure it's getting more difficult time over time, and you're sleeping well, you're keeping your stressors, from mental stress, financial stress, relationship, career stress, because again, these are going to take a toll on your body and allow you to recover more or less depending on how severe they are. If you have all these other factors down and you have everything perfect, and there's no such thing as perfect, but if you have everything in a pretty good spot, then and only then will what the following things I just said are applied to you, right? Then you can follow these steps, but start off with get your body to the 8 to 12% body fat range, nail your protein target down. And once you've done that, optimize your protein. And then from that point, optimize your carbs and fats. Just choose one, and the other one follows up in line. And from that point, brother, you're in a very, very good spot. And then, and only then, can you have that lean, ideal physique that you want. And just like that, bro, the sauce revealed. So if you guys, got any value from that video, you can let me know in the comments. If you didn't, then you can keep it scrolling. But nonetheless, if you guys want to hear how I apply these strategies into my clients and guarantee they get the results that they deserve, because we all deserve to be in the best shape of our lives, and we all have the capability to do so, but we might not always have the skills or the answers or the knowledge necessary or the motivation to consistently hold ourselves accountable. This is where a coach comes into play. And before I invested into a coach myself, I didn't think this way. I spent countless years in the gym, working out, doing the stuff, bro, doing long distance running, keeping my heart rate high, not knowing I was depleting muscle mass in the process. I was eating these foods that weren't responding well with my body. I had intolerances, I had allergies, etc. And there were so many variables, bro. But when I tell you that I've done this for so long now that I could help you achieve your ideal physique, and that's the reason my coaching program is called Achieve Your Ideal Physique, is because you might be, 20 pounds overweight, you might be 100 pounds overweight, you might be 10 pounds underweight, I don't know, you might be lean, you might be somewhere in the middle, but nonetheless, if you follow these steps, you will get to the point where you have achieved your ideal physique. And the other reason I like to say achieve your ideal physique is, and the reason that my company is named the way it is, my business is around that, is, everybody's going to have a different answer. Some people want to be jacked and muscular like a bodybuilder. Some people don't want that. They just want to be toned and defined and have that slim, slender look. And some people might want to be blocky and hold more body fat than others. Some people might want to be more ripped and lean but hold less muscle. And it doesn't matter where you are, bro. Some people don't even care about physical body composition, and they literally just want to feel good and have good energy and enjoy their life. And that's what I found a lot of the clients I've worked with, from the in-person setting to the online setting, is, as much as these things are important to get in their optimal shape, they really just want to be able to have their time back. They want to have their energy back. They want to enjoy their life so they can go do the other things without having lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, etc., because they don't feel good about their body, or because they know that maybe they feel good about themselves, but they know that there's more that they can push themselves to the limit of, and there's more potential, more capabilities, right? But there are also people that really want to make ideal progress. And again, back to my, I don't know if I use this analogy, but back to my analogy of, having a second set of eyes or a pair of glasses, in the sense where it's like, okay, it's literally amplifying what you are seeing. There's a reason that professional bodybuilders have a coach. There's a reason that professional basketball players, like in the previous time, rest in peace Kobe Bryant, or, still alive, but Michael Jordan, like these guys, why did they have a coach in the gym? Well, they weren't the best at weight training. They were the best at basketball in their specific category. And not just that, but although they were the best at playing basketball, they also had a basketball coach. They had a dribbling coach. They had a shooting coach. Why are these things? Is it because they sucked? No, it's because they knew they were great, but they knew that to get to the next level and to get to the fullest, truest capability and truest potential, opportunity, whatever you want to call it, they needed to be pushed further, because not just were they not seeing everything, they also weren't able to hold themselves as accountable as they could if there was somebody else also on top of them, right? And so when you have somebody like that on your side, holding you accountable, making sure you follow through, it gets so much easier to just see results, and you're getting leverage, which really is more with less. So, okay, instead of you spending all this time researching and then applying it and holding yourself accountable, you're just saying, okay, I'm just going to help, and I'm gonna work with the coach and have him take care of a lot of these things. Now, if you guys want, my help, I'd be happy to help you out. By no means am I saying like book a call, but if you feel called, if you feel like my services, my skill sets would genuinely help you achieve your ideal physique, then I want you to click the link below to book a free strategy call. These calls typically go about 45 to 50 minutes. And depending on how in depth we need to go, depending on how many questions you have, depending on how serious you are about making a physical and mental transformation, we can chop it up. And in that call, the beginning of the call, I really just hear about where are you at currently? What is it that you specifically need help with? Where are you at on your journey? And like, how long have you been in that stuck spot? How long have you maybe plateaued? How long have you felt like you couldn't get out of it yourself, or that you haven't made as fast of results as you want, or maybe you haven't been able to hold yourself accountable and sustain it over the long term? That's a tough word to say, especially after talking for 40 minutes, 50 minutes. Sheesh. And so anyways, guys, after, I hear about where you're at and where you want to go and how long you've been stuck there, it's like, okay, well, what does that clear destination look like for you, and how quickly do you want to get there? That's pretty much it. Then I just talk about my processes. I talk about, how I might be able to help. I'm not able to help everybody. Some people that I speak with on the phone, they aren't ready to commit to themselves, and that's fair. Not everybody wants to invest into a coach. And there are people too that, they feel like, okay, now's the time and I'm ready to invest into a coach, but it's just not a good fit. And that's because I'm very selective with who I let into my program. Not everybody's always going to be a good fit for me. Not everybody is going to, I don't work with lazy people. Put that out there. Like, if you're lazy, bro, and you think I'm just going to walk your hand through it, like, yeah, I'm going to be there for you, but I'm not driving to your house, grabbing you by the wrist and yanking you to the gym, especially with the online coaching setting, bro. You could live nearby, and if so, great, but I'm still not doing that. But if you live across the country, bro, I'm unable to do that, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I don't have a private jet that I can just fly to your house at and get there that quickly. So, like, if you're that type of person that, like, you're not ready to invest into your health, you're not serious about making a transformation, you don't think that you can follow through on what I say, then there's no point of, you can still book a call. I'll be happy to help you out, but there's no point of working with a coach, because the coach is only going to excel the things that you're already doing very well, right? And this is, again, why I'm so selective with who I work with, is because, if you're already doing what you need to be doing, and you just want that added boost, then great, right? We'll get you to your ideal physique. And it might take us some time. It might take us a couple months. It might take us closer to a year. It really depends on where you're at. There are people I speak with that are 100 pounds overweight and they want to lose 100 pounds or maybe even more. Because not just, if you're 100 pounds overweight, you have to keep in mind, not just, is it important for you to lose the 100 pounds, like a lot of these people say to me, but when we get you down 100 pounds, is that truly like, are you satisfied with that, or do you want to then get jacked? Because if you're 100 pounds overweight, well, when you're at that base level of weight, maybe you want to get into even better shape. Maybe you want to do a bodybuilding competition. Maybe you want to run a marathon. Like, I have clients right now training for half marathons, and in the near future, thinking about doing a marathon. And simply for the fact that, like, hey, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, and they're like, wow, well, why would I not do that? I'm going to one day look back on this and be like, I wish I did that one thing. It's like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it takes a lot of, holding yourself accountable, following through with actions that are not always easy, difficult, or not always easy and usually difficult, but, well worth it in the end. And, I have clients that are training for that, and so it really depends on where you want to go. But if you're somebody that wants to make a transformation, I'd be happy to help out. Again, you can book a call regardless of if you're serious or not, but just know that if you're going to hop on the call and you're not serious about making a transformation, there's not really much I can do to help you get to that next level. And I can give you some guidance, I can give you some pointers, but if you're in that position and you don't think you're going to fully commit and you don't think you're ready to work with a coach and, actually follow through and do, like, everything in your power to achieve the results you want, then you're probably better off just watching some of my YouTube videos, going to my Instagram at JStrideFit and watching some of my reels there and applying it. But, if you are ready, if you feel like, maybe you've been working out for a while, maybe you've been, doing these things a lot on your own, and, you just don't see the results that you want, and you're ready, and you're sick and tired, you're fed up of not seeing progress, maybe you're stuck in the plateau, maybe you've had health issues and maybe you just want to get into that shape. It's possible. Because again, it is possible. It all starts with mindset and mentality, having the proper belief systems, which allow you to take, subconscious and conscious actions and have subconscious and conscious thought patterns that lead to you believing you are the individual that can accomplish these things. And then and only then can you start to take the actions. Because if you don't have your mind and your thought patterns aligned with your actions, you have this misalignment, this friction. And what happens then is you end up backing out of situations, you don't follow through with things, and that's never a good spot to be in. And so you need to choose, are you going to be the person that thinks about doing these things, that watches the 40, 50, 60-minute videos on YouTube and says, that was great, and walks away and doesn't take action? That's cool if that's you. And I'm not saying that if you don't work with me, you're not taking action. Maybe you are going to apply these things on your own, and if so, that's great. But if you're not the person that follows through and fully commits and fully locks in their goals, then it's going to be very, very challenging to see the results you want. And, not everybody is that type of person. I get it. You don't have to be, nothing against it. But the reason I'm, again, so selective with who I work with is because I literally live, eat, sleep, breathe. I'm trying to think of everything else. I live, sleep, eat, breathe, drink, whatever, bro. All these things like fitness, nutrition, health, faith, and, making sure that I become the best possible version of myself, because there were times in the past where literally people told me that I could not achieve X, Y, and Z. And I got so mad, not because I cared about what their opinion was, because I genuinely disagreed. I genuinely did not believe what they said. And I said, no, that's not possible. I know I can get into shape. When I struggled to gain muscle when I was younger, when I first started working out, people told me you'll never build muscle. You will always be the scrawny 120, 130 pound kid. You'll never be 200 pounds with muscle and staying lean. I always doubted them. I always said, that's cap, right? That is not true. Watch me. It doesn't happen overnight, but I willed it into existence. And again, I'm not saying this in some arrogant way, but literally, you can achieve any single thing that you set your mind to. But the main thing that most people get caught up on is they don't hold themselves accountable, they don't follow through, and they don't actually deep down believe. Because if you actually deep down believe that you could get to the place you wanted to be at in your life, you would genuinely be there right now. And it's just that simple. So, if you're that person and you're ready, you want to make a change, and you are fully committed, you are sick and tired of being stuck where you are, and you're ready, looking for help, then click the link below, book a call, and I'll show you how not just can you achieve your ideal physique, but you can achieve your ideal life. Because again, it all comes back to mindset. And if you have the mindset and you overcome these limiting beliefs, you overcome these mental barriers, these obstacles holding you back, which are really just yourself holding you back. When you can do that and you can see in the mirror how much progress you've made, we have this positive domino effect where it just stacks in your favor. And now you literally have unlimited potential. There's no cap on what you could do with your life. And I'm saying this from the truest, deepest part of my heart. When I started to see results in the gym, it opened so many horizons for me. It allowed me to realize that I could open my own business. I could run my business around this. I could help people, find their faith, find their, optimal health levels, right? And it made me follow through. It made me a more disciplined individual. It made me get closer with God. It allowed me to become a better person in my relationships. It allowed me to become a better friend. It allowed me to have better quality people in my life. It allowed me to set higher expectations for myself, right? Because with the gym, you're constantly, day in, day out, going into the gym, setting these high standards for yourself, setting the bar really high, knowing that there's a chance you might not do it, but there's also a chance that you could achieve these things and you could pull it off. And even just that alone, even if you aren't truly, aware and fully bought in that these things will happen for you, even just thinking that there might be a chance that it's possible, that's going to allow you to take more action, and you do these things more and more, you stack the dominoes in your favor, bro, and eventually you literally have the life that you desire and that you've desired all along. And it's not about, these materialistic things and how you look, feel, or whatever, but I genuinely think that we're all on this earth for a reason, and I think truly my message, my vision is to help people get close with God and their faith, but also to show them that, we can truly live the life that we desire, and we can truly, make a genuine change in the world. And I need to finish this within 60 minutes because I have 20 seconds left. So, like when you accomplish one goal, it allows you to, you know, do anything with your life, and you'll become like an unstoppable individual. So comment on this post the word macro if you want my macro calculator, and if you're ready, you know, make a change. Book a call in the link below, and check out my Instagram. I'll see you guys in the next one.